The biting December wind whipped across the Seoul National University campus, a stark contrast to the vibrant hues of the autumn leaves clinging precariously to the branches. The imposing granite of the main lecture hall seemed to absorb the chill, radiating a cold, unyielding presence. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of old books and stale coffee, a familiar aroma that usually comforted Professor Kim, but today felt oppressive. He adjusted his tweed jacket, the ruffle scratching against his skin, a minor discomfort mirroring the unease churning within him. His lecture on existentialism was progressing, as it always did, with a precise, almost surgical dissection of philosophical concepts. He was in his element, the rhythmic cadence of his voice a hypnotic drone that usually held his students captive. But today something felt off. A subtle discordance vibrated beneath the surface of his carefully constructed arguments that he spoke of the absurdity of existence, the inherent meaninglessness of life devoid of a divine creator. His words, sharp and incisive, were honed by years of rigorous study and debate. He'd built his reputation on his unwavering atheism, a fortress of logic and reason against the perceived tide of religious sentimentality. He demolished countless arguments, dismantled countless faiths with the cold precision of a surgeon. Yet today, the usual satisfaction eluded him. He saw the flicker of doubt in the eyes of some students, the hesitant nods of others, and a strange, unsettling empathy stirred within him. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a vulnerability he'd carefully buried beneath layers of intellectual armor. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the sea of faces. He saw Min-jun, a quiet student in the front row, his gaze fixed intently on the professor, a subtle tension in his posture. Professor Kim noticed the small silver cross peeking from beneath Min-jun's collar, a silent testament to a faith that Professor Kim had spent his life dissecting and dismissing. The cross, usually a mere irritant, a symbol of what he considered a rational belief, today felt different. It wasn't just a symbol. It represented a belief system, a source of comfort and strength for someone. The thought struck him with unexpected force, a jarring dissonance in his carefully constructed worldview that he continued his lecture, but his words lacked their usual conviction. He felt a strange disconnect, a chasm opening between his intellectual pronouncements and the burgeoning empathy he couldn't quite suppress. The scent of chalk dust, usually a comforting reminder of his academic pursuits, now felt suffocating, a symbol of the intellectual prison he seemed to have built for himself. But he finished the lecture with a perfunctory dismissal, the usual crispness absent from his voice. He watched the students file out, their faces a mixture of confusion and contemplation. Min-jun lingered, his eyes hesitant. Professor Kim felt a strange anticipation, a mixture of apprehension and curiosity that Min-jun approached cautiously, his voice barely a whisper. "Professor Kim," he began, his words halting, I understand your arguments, but I still believe." Professor Kim felt a jolt, a sudden awareness of the vulnerability in Min-jun's voice, the quiet strength in his conviction. He found himself unable to respond with his usual sharp retort. The silence stretched, heavy and pregnant with unspoken emotions. The cold air of the lecture hall seemed to amplify the quiet intensity of the moment. The announcement of Jungkook's guest lecture spread through the university like wildfire. It wasn't just the allure of a global superstar, it was the unexpected nature of the lecture's topic, finding meaning in a meaningless world. The juxtaposition of Jungkook's fame and the philosophical weight of the topic created a buzz that transcended the usual academic circles. Professor Kim, despite his initial skepticism, found himself intrigued. He dismissed Jungkook's public persona as mere manufactured celebrity, a product of carefully crafted marketing and manufactured appeal. But the lecture title hinted at a depth he hadn't anticipated. He decided to attend, not out of genuine interest, but out of a need to dissect and debunk what he assumed would be another example of celebrity-driven sentimentality. The lecture hall was overflowing, a sea of faces illuminated by the soft glow of the stage lights. The air thrummed with anticipation, a palpable energy that even Professor Kim couldn't ignore. The scent of perfume and sweat hung in the air, a strange mixture of excitement and nervous energy. Jungkook appeared on stage, his presence surprisingly calming amidst the chaos. He didn't begin with a dazzling performance or a charismatic speech. He started simply, sharing personal anecdotes from his travels, his encounters with people from all walks of life, that he spoke of visiting a remote village in Nepal, the stark beauty of the Himalayas contrasting with the poverty he witnessed. He described the faces of the children, their eyes reflecting a resilience that belied their circumstances. He spoke of the warmth of their smiles, the simple acts of kindness that transcended language barriers. His voice, clear and resonant, filled the hall, carrying an emotional weight that resonated deeply with the audience. He spoke of his visits to hospitals, the quiet dignity of patients battling illness, the unwavering hope in their eyes. He described the scent of antiseptic, the hushed whispers of nurses, the quiet strength of those facing their mortality. He spoke not of grand philosophical concepts, but of the small, everyday acts of kindness, the quiet moments of human connection that gave life meaning, that he didn't preach or pontificate. He simply shared his experiences, his voice laced with genuine emotion. He spoke of the power of empathy, the importance of connecting with others on a human level, regardless of their background or beliefs. The air in the hall grew still, the audience captivated by his sincerity. Professor Kim, initially resistant, found himself strangely moved. The carefully constructed walls of his atheism seemed to crumble under the weight of Jungkook's genuine compassion. The scent of the old books and stale coffee that had weighed him down earlier now seemed insignificant compared to the powerful emotional current flowing through the hall. He found himself questioning his own cynicism, his own rigid adherence to a worldview that seemed increasingly inadequate in the face of Jungkook's simple, yet profound message. The lecture ended, leaving a profound silence in its wake, a silence filled with unspoken questions and unexpected emotions. The experience left Professor Kim profoundly unsettled, a seed of doubt planted firmly in the fertile ground of his hardened skepticism. The lecture hall emptied slowly, the lingering scent of Jungkook's cologne a faint but persistent reminder of the emotional intensity of his speech. Professor Kim remained seated, his gaze fixed on the empty stage, the silence amplifying the turmoil within him. The carefully constructed edifice of his atheism felt strangely fragile, shaken by the unexpected impact of Jungkook's words that he hadn't expected to be moved, let alone challenged. He'd anticipated a superficial display of celebrity sentimentality, easily dissected and dismissed. Instead, he'd encountered something far more profound, a genuine expression of empathy and compassion that resonated on a level beyond intellectual argument. But he saw Minjun leaving, his face illuminated by a quiet joy. The young man's faith, once dismissed as naive, now seemed to possess a strength and resilience that Professor Kim found himself envying. The small silver cross around his neck, previously a symbol of irrationality, now appeared as a source of comfort and strength. Professor Kim rose, his movements stiff and deliberate. He felt a strange compulsion to confront Jungkook, not to attack or belittle, but to understand. He found Jungkook backstage, surrounded by a small group of assistants, the air buzzing with the post-lecture energy. Jungkook turned, his smile fading slightly as he saw Professor Kim approaching. The professor's reputation preceded him. Jungkook knew of his staunch atheism and his sharp intellect. He braced himself for a confrontation, but the professor's demeanor was surprisingly subdued. "Professor Kim," Jungkook said, his voice polite but firm, "I didn't expect to see you here." I came to understand," Professor Kim replied, his voice surprisingly soft. "Your lecture, it challenged my assumptions." Jungkook nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I didn't intend to preach or convert," he said. "I simply shared my experiences, my belief in the power of human connection. But your experiences, they seem to imply a faith," Professor Kim countered, his voice hesitant. "A belief in something beyond the material world." Jungkook smiled faintly. "Perhaps," he said, "I believe in the inherent goodness of humanity, in the capacity for kindness and compassion. I've seen it in the most unexpected places, in the faces of those who have suffered the most. He then launched into a detailed account of his visits to various places, painting vivid pictures with his words. He described the faces of the children in the Nepalese village, their eyes reflecting a resilience that belied their poverty. He spoke of the elderly woman who shared her meager meal with him, her smile radiating a warmth that transcended language barriers. He described the scent of wood smoke, the texture of the rough earth beneath his feet, the sounds of children playing amidst the backdrop of the majestic Himalayas. But he spoke of the patients in the hospital, their faces etched with pain, but their spirits unbroken. He described the quiet dignity of a young woman battling a terminal illness, her unwavering hope a beacon in the face of despair. He spoke of the scent of antiseptic, the rhythmic beeping of heart monitors, the hushed whispers of nurses, the quiet strength of those facing their mortality. But he spoke of the veterans he'd met, their bodies bearing the scars of war, but their spirits undimmed. He described their quiet strength, their unwavering commitment to helping others, their resilience in the face of unimaginable loss. He spoke of the camaraderie among them, the shared experiences that forged an unbreakable bond. Professor Kim listened intently, his initial skepticism slowly eroding. He found himself captivated by Jungkook's storytelling, the vivid descriptions painting a picture far more compelling than any philosophical argument. He felt a growing sense of empathy, a connection to the human experiences Jungkook described. The cold, intellectual detachment he'd cultivated for so long began to crack, revealing a wellspring of emotion he hadn't realized existed. The conversation continued late into the night, the initial formality dissolving into a genuine exchange of ideas and experiences. Jungkook shared more personal stories, revealing a depth of character that belied his public persona. He spoke of his own struggles, his own moments of doubt and despair, his own journey of self-discovery, but he spoke of his faith, not as a rigid dogma, but as a guiding principle, a source of strength and inspiration. He spoke of his belief in the inherent goodness of humanity, in the power of kindness and compassion to overcome adversity. He spoke of his belief in the interconnectedness of all things, the subtle ways in which our actions ripple outwards, affecting the lives of others. Professor Kim, in turn, shared his own story, his own intellectual journey, his own struggles with doubt and uncertainty. He spoke of his early disillusionment with religion, his embrace of atheism as a refuge from what he perceived as irrationality and superstition. He spoke of his dedication to reason and logic, his unwavering commitment to intellectual honesty. But he also admitted to a growing sense of emptiness, a void that his intellectual pursuits had failed to fill. He confessed to a growing awareness of the limitations of his worldview, the inadequacy of his purely rational approach to understanding the human condition. He admitted to a growing sense of loneliness, a detachment from the emotional richness of human experience as the night wore on. The conversation shifted from intellectual debate to a shared exploration of human experience. They spoke of love, loss, grief, joy, hope, and despair. They spoke of the complexities of human relationships, the challenges of navigating life's uncertainties. They spoke of the search for meaning, the quest for purpose, the yearning for connection. The initial tension between them dissipated, replaced by a mutual respect and understanding. Professor Kim found himself drawn to Jungkook's genuine humility, his unwavering compassion, his deep-seated belief in the power of human kindness. He saw in Jungkook a reflection of the humanity he had strived to suppress, a reminder of the emotional richness he had denied himself as dawn broke, casting a soft golden light over the campus. Professor Kim felt a profound shift within him. The rigid structure of his atheism had crumbled, replaced by a more nuanced, more compassionate understanding of the world. He no longer saw faith as a threat to reason, but as a complementary force, a source of strength and inspiration. He no longer saw religion as an obstacle to intellectual development, but as a potential source of meaning and purpose that he left Jungkook's company with a newfound sense of hope, a renewed sense of purpose. The cold, intellectual detachment he had cultivated for so long had been replaced by a warmth, a connection to the human experience that had been missing for so long. The scent of the morning air, the sounds of the awakening campus, felt different, imbued with a newfound appreciation for the beauty and complexity of life. The small silver cross around Min Jun's neck, a symbol he had once dismissed, now resonated with a newfound significance, a testament to the enduring power of faith and the transformative power of human connection. The encounter with Jungkook had not only challenged his beliefs, but had fundamentally altered his perspective, opening his heart to a world he had previously shut out. The following weeks were a period of profound introspection for Professor Kim. The encounter with Jungkook had left an indelible mark, shattering the carefully constructed walls of his atheism and revealing a wellspring of emotion he hadn't realized existed. The familiar scent of his study, once a source of comfort, now felt heavy with the weight of his past convictions. He spent hours rereading philosophical texts, but the words seemed hollow, lacking the resonance they once held. That he found himself drawn to the simple acts of kindness, the small gestures of empathy that he had previously dismissed as sentimental. He observed the interactions of his students, noticing the quiet acts of support, the shared laughter, the unspoken bonds of friendship. He saw the strength in their faith, the comfort they found in their beliefs, and he no longer dismissed it as naive or irrational. That he began attending campus events, engaging with students in a way he hadn't before. He listened to their stories, their struggles, their hopes and dreams. He found himself genuinely interested in their lives, their perspectives, their beliefs. He discovered a depth of human connection he had previously been blind to. He started small, offering words of encouragement to a struggling student, helping a classmate in need, volunteering his time for a campus charity event. These small acts, once insignificant, now felt significant, imbued with a newfound meaning and purpose. The scent of freshly brewed coffee, once a simple pleasure, now felt like a shared moment of connection, a small act of hospitality. That he revisited his lectures, revising his approach, incorporating a greater emphasis on empathy and compassion. He no longer presented his arguments with the same cold, detached tone. He acknowledged the limitations of his purely rational approach, recognizing the importance of emotional intelligence and human connection. He encouraged open dialogue, respectful debate, and a willingness to consider alternative perspectives. His transformation wasn't sudden or dramatic. It was a gradual process, a slow unfolding of awareness, a gradual shedding of his old convictions. He didn't abandon his intellectual rigor, but he integrated it with a newfound appreciation for the emotional richness of human experience. He still valued reason and logic, but he recognized their limitations, their inability to fully capture the complexities of the human heart. But he sought out Min Jun, the student who had initially challenged him. He apologized for his past dismissiveness, acknowledging the insensitivity of his previous remarks. He expressed his admiration for Min Jun's unwavering faith, his quiet strength, his unwavering kindness. He found himself genuinely grateful for the young man's courage in challenging his preconceived notions. That he also reached out to Jungkook, expressing his gratitude for the profound impact of his lecture. He admitted his past skepticism, acknowledging the limitations of his worldview. He expressed his newfound appreciation for the power of human connection, the importance of empathy, and the transformative power of kindness. The news of Professor Kim's transformation spread through the university, generating a wave of surprise and admiration. Some were skeptical, others were inspired, but most were touched by his genuine humility, his willingness to acknowledge his past mistakes, and his commitment to personal growth. Professor Kim's story became a legend on campus, a testament to the transformative power of human connection, the unexpected ways in which our lives intersect, and the enduring power of kindness to overcome even the most deeply entrenched beliefs. The scent of the old books in his study no longer felt oppressive, but rather a reminder of his intellectual journey, a testament to his personal transformation. He had found meaning not in the rejection of faith, but in the embrace of humanity, a journey that began with a simple encounter with a global superstar and ended with a profound transformation of his own heart and mind. The once cold, unyielding granite of the lecture hall now seemed to radiate a warmth, a reflection of the profound change that had taken place within him.